I call myself the vagabond artist because now I'm a full-time artist and I travel the world all over the place going on new great adventures. One of the things I really enjoy doing is teaching people that the chance to change their life is a lot more within their reach than they think it is. So let me show you a couple of videos about how you can go about changing your life and end up someplace beautiful like this. The first one tells about how I did it, my personal adventure. The second one are my top 10 pieces of advice for somebody who wants to do this. The third one goes over my budget here and how much I spend so that you can get an idea of how much it would cost you. And then the last one is just a trip down to the grocery store. So you see what life outside of the United States or Canada is like. I ended up dropping out of the US rat race and moving to a small Caribbean island. Well, I got drunk in a bar. Here's what happened. About 8 years ago, my sister asked me if I wanted to go down and stay at her friend's house on Utila, Honduras. And I didn't know anything about Honduras. I just knew it was supposed to be the murder capital of the world. So I said, sure, let's go. Sounds like fun. We got down here and it is definitely not what I expected to find. It's a beautiful country with amazing people. It's very, very safe where we are. And it was just paradise. We spent all day on the beach and swimming, and we learned to scuba dive. And of course, we started to talk about, wouldn't it be great if we could live here? So we go to this iconic beach bar called Neptune's, and they're filming something outside. And so I go into the bar and I ask the guy next to me what they're filming, and he says, it's International House Hunters Caribbean Life. And he says, I'm the real estate agent on the show. So we started drinking, and the next day we owned one of the lots from the show. Seriously, that's all the thought that went into it. But over the years, having the property here became a symbol that I could get out of the stress and the unhappiness that I was feeling in the United States. I could come down here and I could start a new life, a simpler, more meaningful life. And one day I woke up at 3 a.m. just overwhelmed with a panic attack like I often was due to my work. And I thought, that's it. I got to get out of here. So next morning I sat down and I wrote out a plan. What would it take for me to be able to move down here to Honduras? It took me 5 years of hard work on that plan to finally build a house, put everything in order that I needed to, and make the move. And so now this is my front yard where I spend my time thinking about life and what's really important, and reading and drawing and painting, scuba diving as much as I can, and telling stories on TikTok. What does it take to drop out of the US rat race and move to a small Caribbean island in pursuit of a more meaningful and happier life? I went to school and I worked hard and I got an advanced degree. I became a professional, and it certainly came with financial rewards as well. I got the nice house and the nice car, and I could go do what I wanted and not really have to worry about money. Supposed to be happy, but I wasn't. I decided that professional achievements and financial rewards were not meaningful in my life. And so I was going to find happiness by going in the opposite direction, by leaving and abandoning all of that, by giving up that money and going to somewhere where my life was so simple that it was down to just a few things. And I trusted that if I left all of that, all of those physical comforts, and instead simplified my life down to just the very basics of what I needed, that I would find more meaning and happiness in my life. That led me to this small Caribbean island off of the coast of Honduras, where I try to do that. My days are no longer filled with long to-do lists and things that I have to get done in order to make a living to pay for stuff that I don't need. Instead, I need almost nothing. And so my time is devoted to just the little teeny bit I need to survive, and the rest in the pursuit of things that are going to bring me more happiness and joy in my life. I would be lying to you if I told you that that was easy, because it is not. It is hard from a financial aspect to suddenly be without the funds that you had before. From a comfort aspect, to not be able to get the things that you used to get without thinking. And from an emotional self-worth aspect, I got a lot of self-worth out of the achievements that I had before that I've now given up in the hopes of finding meaning somewhere else. The question is it worth it? Yes. For me, leaving the rat race of the U.S. society, which was going to kill me, coming here has given me a new life. But it's still hard, and there are days when it is difficult, but it is a journey that I am so grateful that I get to go on. These are the top 10 things you should do if you want to drop out of the U.S. rat race and move somewhere else in the world to live like I did. Number one is decide where you want to go. A lot of people want to come here to Utila just because that's where I found and they like the idea. But everybody's unique and the world is big and beautiful, and there is a perfect place for everyone, and it's not the same for everybody. So decide what you really want in life. Do you want to live by the ocean like me, where you can scuba dive every day? Or do you want to hike in the mountains? Do you want to be somewhere culturally significant where there's lots of history? Do you want lots of convenience, or do you want to rough it? Do you want to live off grid or with all the conveniences of back home? Figure out what you want and then go find a place that matches that. Second, visit, and visit a lot, but don't go as a tourist. There is a huge difference between visiting someplace and living someplace. So when you go visit, imagine what it would be like to live there. What are the hardware stores and the grocery stores like? How would I do banking? Those are the things that you want to figure out. And seek out groups that can help you. On almost all these places, there are Facebook groups of immigrants and immigrant support groups and blogs and YouTube videos. Go watch them and see what it's really like to live there. Next, you got to figure out what it's going to cost. As a rule of thumb, it costs about $24,000 a year for a couple to live in Latin America. But that can vary widely depending on how you live. People do it for a lot less, but people do it for a lot more. And that's going to factor in the decisions you make about, do you live in the middle of a city, or do you live rural? Do you live on an island, or do you live on a mainland? Are you going to have a car? Are you going to use public transportation? Are you going to rent, or are you going to own? Next is educate yourself. And one of the things you need to do is educate yourself about how you can make a living there. Maybe you're going to be able to retire and not worry about it. Maybe you're younger and you're going to be a digital nomad. You need to learn about working in another country. You're definitely going to want to educate yourself on finances, because that's going to be a big deal. You may be thinking, oh, I can't access my 401k until I'm 65, and that's not true. There's something called the rule of 55 that lets you access your 401k earlier. So you need to educate yourself about all those things. What is the culture and the history like where you're going? Do you need to learn the language? Educate yourself. And you're going to develop a plan. It was 8 years from the time that I wrote down everything I needed to do to end up here before I was able to pull it off. It's fun to pretend like you can just run off and do things. And I don't know, maybe you are in a place in your life where you can do that. But for most people, you've got a plan, and you've got to write down everything you've got to do, and you've got to stay motivated. Every morning I would wake up and I would go over my plan and what I was going to accomplish that day. That helped me dream about a better life. Dreaming about it and then planning about it and executing that plan is what got me here. Next, adopt a minimalistic lifestyle. That's going to help you in two ways. First, it's going to reduce the amount of money that you're spending where you are now. Quit buying stuff. Save your money to do something better with your life. But second, once you get here, you're going to have a minimalistic life. Things are simple here because there is no retail therapy. There is no store here. I can't just go out and buy things. And so you might as well start getting used to that. Number 7, start taking care of the important relationships in your life. You're going to be away from family and you're going to be away from friends. So start building those relationships now and exploring other ways that you can maintain that relationship even though you're not right there. Zoom calls and text messages and phone calls and getting together for long vacations rather than just popping in every day. That's what your new life is going to be with those friends and family. Next, become a better person and make a conscious decision about what kind of person you're going to be. A lot of people want to leave not because they're going to someplace, but because they're fleeing from something in their life and something often about them. Look internally to yourself and decide, what person do I want to be in my new life? What are the goals that are important to me? What do I want to accomplish there? And start working on becoming that person. You're not going to escape who you are just by coming somewhere where it's a little bit prettier. Number 9 is a corollary to that. Quit caring what other people think. They're not you. Their opinions don't matter because they're going to tell you you're crazy and it's unsafe where you're going and it'll never work and you're going to run out of money. All these things to discourage you from doing what you know you want to do. They're not you. You're you. Trust yourself, not them. Number 10 is just remember you can do this. It seems impossible to go from where you are now to where you want to be. It sure did for me. But doing this is how I got here, and you can do it too. This is the cost to live on my small Caribbean island of Utila, Honduras. I'm going to break out my monthly costs in May, as well as give you some insights on what your costs might be. Most people's biggest cost is housing. I don't owe anything on the house. There's no mortgage because they don't have mortgages here. I financed my construction by using some savings I had. Plus I took out a loan against my 401k that I paid back. And then I used the equity from the sale of my home in the United States to pay it off here. Now, if you're going to rent something on an island like mine, you're probably going to pay about $600 for a 1-bedroom. On the mainland, $600 would get you a nice 2-bedroom. I do have one rental cost. I rent a slip in town to park my boat because there's no roads from here. I have to take my boat in, and that cost me $200 a month. Spent $400 on groceries, and this was a bit high because I had visitors. I ate out last month more than normal because I had some friends in town. To go out and get a burger and a cocktail, a drink is going to cost you about $20 if you go to a touristy place. But you can go to the place where the locals eat, one of their diners. Food's delicious, and you can spend $5 for a meal. Gas is currently costs about $4 a gallon. I don't use very much because all I have is an ATV and a little motorcycle. But the boat is 2-cylinder, so it eats up a lot of gas. My utilities is zero because we're off grid, so I don't have to pay for any utilities. And I don't pay anything for car insurance because there aren't any cars on our small island. And I don't pay anything for medical insurance. I have Dan insurance. I pay, I think, $80 a year. That's for diving insurance. My employer pays for my medical insurance. But I did have some medical expenses last month because I had surgery to remove some cancer. I'm healing well. That cost me $320 to pay for the doctor and the surgery. And because the costs are so low for medical, most people just pay cash. Travel expenses last month were about $100. I had to take a ferry from our island to the mainland and then hire a driver. Vehicles, as I said, we don't have cars. And so you buy an ATV or a motorcycle. They rust through here. Buy like these cheap Chinese ATVs. They cost about $4,000 to replace every 3 years. So that averages out to about $110 a month. My internet for island cable is $80. I pay that. My sister pays for Starlink. That's $60. We have both because that gives us redundancy, because if something happens, we need to be able to communicate with the outside world. And so that's a safety thing for us. Housing maintenance broke my bank this month. It was about $1,200, and I got a lot for that because I had a whole bunch of stone brought in and sand, making pathways for future landscaping projects, had a bunch of things done to the house, a bunch of stuff painted, a bunch of stuff fixed. Normally it's about $200, $1,200 this month. In property taxes, we pay about $700 a year, so that breaks down to about $55 a month. Amazon. How big's your Amazon bill? Mine was $0 because it takes a month to ship anything down from the US and it's very expensive, so we hardly use it. And then I had about $300 in miscellaneous costs. So my total came to $1,925 last month. And that's in line with the rule of thumb. There's kind of a rule of thumb that you can move to Central America and live on about $24,000 a year. You can do it for a lot less. You can definitely do it for a lot more. But that's kind of a rule of thumb, and I was about there. Normally, I would probably spend a lot less on maintenance and more on travel costs. And that's what it cost to live here last month. How does this compare to what you're spending where you are? What's grocery shopping like on our small Caribbean island? How much does it cost? I'm at the grocery store, so come on, let's go. It's Monday, which means the shipment of fruit and vegetables has just arrived on our island, so lots to pick from. Come on a Wednesday and they're all moldy and bad, so you come on Monday. Carrots for my chicken. This squash is amazing. I'm going to make a hash out of that. I'm going to make salsa roja out of these jalapenos and tomatoes and some onions and garlic I have at home. Iceberg lettuce. This is rare to be that nice. Going into the store, it's cramped and there are only these 2 small little aisles. So they just carry the basics and one of everything, not 50 choices of spaghetti sauce. There are 4 or 5 of these little grocery marts on the island, and each one carries something a little different. So you usually end up having to go to 4 or 5 places to get everything that you need. And at first it bothered me that I didn't have a lot of selection. But after a while, you begin to realize you don't need a lot of selection. You just need one version of everything. And I love to cook, so it bothered me that I couldn't get all the exotic ingredients. But now I realize I still like to cook, but I cook from simpler things. Like I'm not going to make chicken chili from a can. I'm going to make it from these beans. And instead of buying coffee creamer, which is expensive here, I'm going to make it out of this condensed milk. And no prepackaged curry. I'm going to use these lentils as a base for spices and vegetables I already have. Honduras produces amazing coffee. This is packaged here on our island, so I support the brand, even though it's a lot more. This decaf is about $12. This is the ketchup, so this is $3, about $4, about $2. Olive oil, that's a little over $3. Refried beans for $3. Big bag of pistachios costs you about $18. Kraft mayonnaise costs about $8, and I don't do this, I make my own. Mustard is about $6. Again, I make my own. This is the shelf-stable milk, so you don't have to refrigerate that until you open it. This is how we get our herbs. So we don't get cilantro here, we get this, which kind of tastes like cilantro. Sweet peppers is a mainstay of the diet here. We eat a lot of these. No Diet Coke or any diet products like that, they're illegal here. All of the meat is always frozen. You can get all different kinds. So I'm going to get a chicken. Get a whole chicken. From that, I can have chicken and chicken tacos, as well as make a broth. I will supplement that with most of my protein comes from fish, which I buy from the fishermen every Wednesday. And I pay gringo prices for that because we want to help the guy out. So for 3 pounds of fish will cost me about $14, and I can get about 3 pounds of lobster for the same amount. This is your dish cleaning soap. It's hard. You open that up and it's a paste, and then you put that onto your wash rag, and that costs about $1.50. A lot of things aren't labeled here. You don't know how much they are until after you've bought them, and so I don't know how much this is, and I'm not going to buy it. Cheese selection, and it's really limited. This is common here. It's a soft cheese. But you get some cheddar, but not a lot of variety. It's like some Parmesan. I'm going to get that. None of your vegetables and fruits go into their own separate bag like in the United States, because we're on the front line of the battle against plastic here, so no plastic bags. This was a lot of groceries for me for 1 week, and it came to 1,111 lempiras, which is about $44.45. A lot of that cost was tied up in that chicken, and most families here don't eat proteins with most of their meals other than what they get from beans. They eat rice and beans a lot for dinner. So by Honduran standards, that was a pretty extravagant grocery bill. I hope you've enjoyed the videos, and if so, please give me a follow and come back and watch some more.